12 years with cartoon scholar and I started to watch Craig of the Creek around the end of the fourth season. The fourth season felt different from the previous ones, it was a brand new story. So I wanted to make a video on the first 3 seasons and then on the fourth season. But I failed to finish the video before the fourth season finale and I thought that the video had to be about all the finished seasons. So that upset me made a video on the first 4 seasons and later did not do anything on the 5th season. But now they suddenly make an unexpected 6th season. So I tried making up a new schedule. This video will be re-upload of everything I had to say about the first 3 seasons. Prepare to my old microphone. Prepare to my level of English being low and to me calling Xavier Xavier. If you never watched this cartoon, then from this video you will learn what it is about. I will warn you before I will start to tell major spoilers. If you watched this cartoon and maybe even a fan of it, you can consider my analysis of it too.
So listen to me. Come on and follow me.
The main characters are Craig, who likes to draw maps, including the map of the creek.
I'm making a comprehensive atlas of all the known kid landmarks in the creek.
A combative girl, Kelsey.
I'm training Mortimer to peck out the brains of my enemies. The children of the creek would sing of their deeds unto the ages.
And JP.
I can't believe I'm not an alien.
And the way your brain works is very cool and full of good ideas. Just don't follow them when they involve jumping off anything.
They live in a small town surrounded by forest. A long creek flows in the forest, near which children from the neighborhood spend a lot of time. The 3 main characters, sometimes by themselves, sometimes with other kids, hang out, play games, or do something else. Often they play pretend. Imagination of children is an important part of the cartoon. And I will get back to this fact a couple of times in this video. The stories are usually simple and light. There are a lot of secondary characters written for the cartoon.
We've got Kit, Stax, JP and Kelsey, Wilderness and Jason, Boris and Tony, Sewer Queen Ren, Chunk Lord and Maney, Timekeeper Warp Speed, Handlebarb and Bobby.
The characters are very diverse and many of them are very interesting.
There's also Sailor Boy, Melissa, Bridget and Turner, Faraday Marie, Eustace, Frizz Boy and Roger, Big Red Richard, Muddy Buddies, Brenda, Zach and Toma, Matrea, Abby, Helen, Aaron, Paintball Betty and the Priest Kid.
Our main characters who often hang out together in their stump are sometimes called the Stump Kids. There are also Horse Girls, Ninja Kids, Tennis Speeds.
And then there's all the Pacific Sewer Kids and the Paintball Army and Snorkel Cadet and Deltron.
They have their own Creek society with some their own events, rules, traditions, and so on. I mean, of course, they have homes they return to, but while they are at the creek, they have their own life. Couple of notes regarding the graphics. The backgrounds are beautifully drawn, but characters in the backgrounds can be portrayed as frozen. Character drawing is usually simple, cartoonish. And you can call me a sticker.
Although the correct pronunciation is stickler.
But this, let's say, vulgar humor wasn't necessary for this cartoon. Some episodes are especially deep, like the doorway to Helen. And since that episode, I for a long time hoped in vain that Helen will appear later again. Bridget with her sect of Reddits also made an impression on me. And also I think that Her Majesty the Sewer Queen deserved more screen time.
You will do right to immortalize her on your map, Dry-footer.
The characters and the relationships between them are really interesting.
Paintball Mike, Todd, Tabitha and Courtney, the Scratchest One, Cannonball, Eliza and Zoe, Jane and George, Carter, Mackenzie, Elder Mark, Elder Perry, Elder David Cherry.
And when I said that the characters are diverse, I meant it in many senses.
They prefer they them pronouns.
And you can again call me a sticker, but I think that plot of the cartoon should be logical. Craig and Jessica are almost caught by honeysuckle rangers.
No one can save us now.
And at this very moment, the green poncho appears to save them. Oracle cuts an orange with her round sword, and then she breaks a watermelon with her head. I also hope that this will not become a bad lesson for children, as well as, by the way, eating something that has fallen to the ground. But now I am talking about logic, so I will just say that logic and physics in this cartoon are not at the best level.
Have you considered science?
But there is something interesting about this cartoon. As I mentioned, the kids in the cartoon fantasize a lot. And of course, it's normal that their fantasy is not always realistic. This in itself does not ruin the cartoon universe. But I am not always sure what is the fantasy and what is the reality. Somewhere we are pointed to it directly. Somewhere this is pretty visible. Somewhere this can be guessed by indirect signs, especially if you know the cartoon well.
The ground is lava!
And somewhere I just cannot say for sure. And I don't wanna explain every illogicality as a fantasy. Imagination plays an important role in the story, and this is a very interesting concept of the cartoon. But it still upsets me when there are no specific rules.
Just head toward the trading tree and follow the tubes we've somehow never seen before.
Most of the episodes are filler, but there is a main plot, and soon I will tell some minor spoilers. Moreover, even filler episodes often change something. Sometimes this is about small details. In this episode, the Sewer Queen gave a cow with pedals to Kelsey. In this episode, Jason stole this car. And in this episode, he uses this car for a race. Or sometimes this is about relationships between the characters. For example, Craig and the aforementioned Jason gradually got along. Or we meet Carter, who destroys the cardboard city, and later his line will be continued. Or we learn where Kate gets her supplies. And later it will be important for the plot. I often complain that the order of the episodes can be messed up. In this cartoon it happens too, but in the first 3 seasons it rarely causes problems. By the way, the division between the first 2 seasons is arbitrary, and the official finales of both seasons are not special. What I like about this cartoon is a change of time of the year. The cartoon begins at the spring. In the second season, the summer will begin. In the third season, they started to change too fast. Autumn, winter, even spring has come to end. But their order is still logical. In Craig of the Creek, the Halloween episode will be among other autumn episodes. However, and I am gradually starting to say more serious spoilers, it sometimes seemed strange that Xavier didn't do anything for months, especially after he got the map. The main plot of Xavier trying to take over the creek is interesting, but it consists of really small amount of episodes. That's generally a very simple story. The Green Poncho, the Honeysuckle Rangers, the map, the King Xavier, the BFF Maya. the invasion, the reconnaissance, plus so many fillers can tire. Only at the finale of the third season suddenly we get a continuous arc capture the flag. 5 11-minute and 1 22-minute episodes. However, if we add all of those numerous secondary lines, then we can say that we are simply watching the gradually flowing ordinary life of the characters, as well as the change of seasons. It makes the cartoon feel more alive. Also, I again remind you of imagination of children. I sometimes thought that maybe even the confrontation with Xavier is just plain pretend.
Clink. There. Now you're handcuffed. You're all handcuffed. Clink. Clink.
Could it be that just Xavier's role is to play a villain?
Is that a rhetorical question, or are you looking for us to give you an answer?
I was going to answer if you would just give me a.
This plot is interesting, but sometimes it sounds like nonsense. How can you build such a hierarchical society initially having only supplies of candies and sweets?
Is that a rhetorical question?
Plus problems with physics, which I talked about earlier.
You call that a throw?
But after the season 3 finale, I think that this plot is real. Of the most interesting things, I want to highlight the character of Maya and her development.
Who am I? Just someone who betrayed their best friend for nothing.
What is also important in the central plot of the cartoon is the central ideas of the cartoon. Filler episodes also have their own morals, and sometimes they even are not so banal. But much more interesting are the ideas behind the history of Capture the Flag. Simply put, the cartoon promotes anti-militarism. The kids will be researching about how the children who played at this creek in the 70s staged a war of game of Capture the Flag, and how because of this war they couldn't play at the creek anymore. The kids never managed to find out why the war started.
I don't know if it matters how the war started. I think all that matters is that we don't start one.
And the remark I want to make here is that if we want to prevent wars, it is useful for us to know history and understand how the wars of the past began.
Have we learned nothing?
At the end of the third season, King Xavier gained power over the entire creek, and to defeat him, the kids decided to start a game of Capture the Flag. I like that the cartoon opposes militarism, and I can also say that it does not suffer from naivety here. Authoritarianism taking over society may have even more serious consequences. Giving a general assessment of the cartoon, it is far from a masterpiece. However, the cartoon is based on an interesting and original concept. The cartoon seems to be filler, but the life of the characters changes a little bit, which already makes the cartoon much more lively than a simple sitcom. And I was imbued by the central story and its messages. Now I suggest you consider the option of like, comment, and subscription.
Why don't you all be good little pups and stay? Toodaloo!
Hi, that's me from the 2024 again. Thankfully the dark jokes around Bridget didn't scare you away. At some point, hopefully before the 6th season finale, I will release a joint video on the 4th and 5th seasons. I hope my talks about militarism and authoritarianism in this video were interesting, because in the next one we will talk about overcoming a collective trauma of a despotic regime. Subscribe not to miss it. Goodbye everyone.